let me just sort of line up. So this next campaign, which, well, again, it's a solo player one, but it was kind of just off the cuff and needed sort of something to play and do. And so I thought of something which brought me back to the first campaign. The interesting fact of the civilization that came before everything fell apart in the first age. So, this was taking place then. Now the players don't know shit, but this is just for my stand-in point. This is before it all collapsed. So I don't think this music is very out of place. Oh man. Copyright. Learn that one. Hard way. Copyright. That one's out of place. There we go. I think I'll put that one in. Okay, I'll play that one. So, it's basically that one map in the snow. But see, the thing is that it was sort of a peaceful area, and the king ran his show very political, so he wouldn't act on anything. It was like slow government, basically, because he had all these nobles and, like, I don't know, the fucking people from across the way, other kingdoms and stuff to worry about. And so, during that time of political strife, a faction of cultists, unnamed, showed up, and they would brutally flay and mutilate the corpses of villages they would come across and burn half of it down. So the prince, in his sort of, like, I don't know, it's wanting to do better than his father, took his little regiment of troops, alongside, like, cleric, I believe. I need to see the group. So it's a cleric of church. I say church, but I'm just the religious sect. I just use church because it's easier to place. Yeah, his ragtag of troops. I don't really want to get into their characters too much, but it was just kind of his ragtag of misfits that he sort of grew up with. And they were pretty good with their, like, base skills, I want to say. Like, you know, someone was a ranger, there was this warrior, there was this mage. Everyone sort of fit the, like, differences and stuff to kind of lift up where people were lacking. And I didn't really know what the prince was. I figured he was a fighter, but he kind of believed in, like, the light of which, like, paladins would, I guess. So there's like a minor paladin, but more so fighter. Yeah, so he would go through and kind of pick off these cultists that were spreading around, and eventually hit a point of being so successful in doing so The king, in his arrogance and I guess jealousy, wanted to put a showing for it to save face with all the nobles and everything, and basically take credit for everything. Is when pretty much his son sort of did all of that and pushed them to a corner. I mean, the king was keeping tabs on what he's doing, and so he himself came down with a troop regiment as it was sort of hitting its peak to get the last of the cultists that were in this kind of big port city. So they corner them there. The king takes all the credit, but unfortunately, the leader of this cultist faction hijacked one of the ships and fled with some of his crew. And the thing is, the king, taking credit for all that, could not let his son, because his son was going to go after this, even if he forbade him, he would have still done it. So he figured he was going to take, I think it was 3 ships? Maybe 4. But either way, that was kind of the burn of things. And so they would eventually set sail with about 3 or 4 ships. Ah, damn. So, let me think. Okay, so I think it was 4. So there was the dwarf, which I had to kind of pick, because that there were the dwarves in that area, I guess. So they chartered a ship because the direction in which the cultists were going was to kind of an uncharted frozen land, I want to say. And the dwarves wanted to go there to go pick out mines because they knew there was going to be riches there untapped. And since they were sort of, what do you want to call it? Scouting, I guess, miner party, they were going to go too. So they had their own ship and they were going to go with to add supply, logistics, and whatnot. Also help with funding a little bit with some troops. The king had his own troop, and also the High faction, which it was an earlier rendition of how I had that wizard with a paladin, the wizard and that cleric, the grandmaster and the archbishop. So they had their own, which was in this kingdom. There would be a paladin. Had his, well, no, he wasn't the paladin. He was like a general fighter. He was a knight. And then there was a high level, I believe, cleric in that mix up. And they were following under the orders of the king. And so that would be his ship, the dwarf ship. And then there was the soldier's ship, which would be their troops and some supplies on there. And then there was like the worker ship, peasants. I mean, there were still guards on every ship, but that one kind of had their like workers who would, pitch the tents, gather wood for fires, villagers essentially who kind of volunteered. And so the king stuffed his son on that boat, which has all the player on it. So, yeah, they have a heroic send-off. Everyone's cheering for the king. The prince kind of gets pissed off about that, and they set sail after the ship, but they end up in that fog that I had. It's fog. This is the magical fog now. So, I gotta switch up this music. there. That was good. So they reach an icy shore, but the problem is it's just, oh no, the player wasn't on the prince's ship. The player was with the king's or the soldier's ship. So so here's how it was. So the king's ship and the soldier's ship managed to stay together, but the prince's ship and the dwarf ship went missing. So the two ships land on a icy shore, or whatever, to set a sort of base camp at the foothold of this like climbing hill. I'm kind of just basically narrating the whole D&D campaign, dude. And this was supposed to just be cliff notes. God damn it. So okay, I don't need to go into the nitty gritty stuff. King tasked the player in a group regiment that was sort of because you kind of split the prince's like followers from him, so all the prince had was just the villagers to sort of work with. Um, yeah, so they lost their workers, their volunteers, basically militia and a few guards guys. So they send them the player out with the group or whatever and go scout out, but whatever, while they do their base camp stuff and figure out where the fuck their ship landed, the cultist one. So they end up going through caverns and find these ice elementals in their way. They dispatch them easy enough, and then they find the prince's ship sort of wrecked in the icy cavern. Nobody aboard, and it's sort of like half sunken. They don't find any bodies, which was kind of alarming. And so they follow the path up. Since they didn't come from the only way that they came in, they went through the other way, which sort of led them into ravines, over, like up and over, around. And then they stretched up this sort of mountainside where there would be some trees, and then this like snaking cave network to the right. But they do end up finding the prince inside. It was an old mountain dwarf, I wouldn't say city. It was sort of the early steps of being that. Like they had their archway set up, they had their living quarters, blacksmiths, so they could sharpen their tools to go pick mine. A running river that came through for water, and then like a food area and what have you. But everything's really old, and like I'm this is older than the first age, damn near. So they find them there, but they've lost a lot of, well, half the people, I want to say, from their ship making it that far, because the coast was not safe, because the elementals kept showing up on top of being pressed by undead. But these undead were a little more peculiar. They had like cold damage attacks, I want to say, so they had like a magical property, so they were fucking way tougher than normal skeletons, I'll tell you that. So they were pretty damn scary. So they got pushed into this cave to be able to fight off, fend for themselves, and there was leftover like I don't know, supplies, I want to say, to heat a fire, and then they had their rations and stuff, and they were just trying to get the logistics of what the fuck to do. But then that happens that they showed up to find them, and then told them, oh, yeah, they're back there. And so they try leaving, but get separated because this would be a bone dragon, but it had cold damage breath. I don't know what I called it, but either way, it was a bone dragon that had basically a frost attack or breath attack, cold cold damage breath attack. It split them up. It killed a lot of people in its cone. The prince got, GTFO'd with a few more survivors the other way, while the player's crew kind of went the other way, and it's just like, oh fuck, we can't do nothing. Uh, I mean, fighting that thing is kind of unimaginable. So the player decides to try to loop around, I think, another way, while sending one of the rangers back, which I think there was only one, to go tell the king. And I thought that was kind of ridiculous, but whatever. I just went with it. Just like, okay, maybe this guy's skilled enough to fucking just go through all that shit by himself and survive. Whatever. So the player sets off, goes further, but finds they can't get around, and they end up. I mean, they try by going through this cave, but they end up finding the lost dwarves in this cave, and it's not all of them. It was a taskmaster and some mining dwarves and some warriors, badly beaten up. The taskmaster's kind of unconscious, semi-unconscious, on the ground. They had to fight yetis, a new creature I had to bring in. Uh, yeah, and so they sort of fought their way out, and then I believe that's kind of where the campaign ended for the player. I think it was just one fucking session, maybe two, and that was it. That was literally it. Um, I went deeper with it though, because it seemed like, bring out the first stage. Like I didn't have anything to base myself off with the beforehand, so this was fun to kind of investigate or deal with. So yeah, you know what? I think that there's enough stuff here I could probably. Let me look here. Maybe I can show you. I don't know. Maybe you can see this. No, I think it's all legacy lightning. Hmm. Right there. So yeah, I mean, torches around. Player was with this kind of crew, I want to say. This is when they were split up. That was kind of all that's left. They had some militia guys that were the white uh, health bars, and then the green ones, which were people with them, like, it's like a semi-caster, mage, warrior. I think he could wear medium. That was like scale mail. And then sort of tank guy that they had, and then that's the ranger dude. I think he's like level 1, maybe level 2. But yeah, that was kind of the cave network they kind of hopped into when they had to take cover and take their decision making. And then there was a cave network that never got explored, but I kind of want to show. So there was this thing I called the spire. So you'd be looking down. You'd be looking up at this if you were like down at the basin from the base camp for the king. Like they would see this kind of like look. Like it looked very chaotic and disorientating looking, like I don't know, it was very scary. Like this was the best picture I could encapsulate because it was kind of like a dark enshroudment, kind of weird smokiness that sort of came off this mountain. And then at times you would see this like electrical storm sort of go on at the peaks, and like coming down from it, then you'd start seeing normal kind of clouds, but there'd be kind of this hazy fog. It's kind of settling down from there, and like the foreboding look of it just kind of killed morale for some of these troops, which I did kind of enact that with these characters. If the player did venture further out, where I would be rolling, I think, a coin on all of them, whether or not they have disadvantage on attacks or not. And so, yeah, then I won't really say where the character would go, but just more story stuff that I can kind of encapsulate. So, this is one of the battle maps. Uh-oh. You see it, and then you don't. There we go. So I think it was set up in a way, I think that they did start from there. Because this was like going up the spire. Because they found where the cultists were and where they climbed up to. Yeah, so, yeah, they would have ended up going through here, killing their way in. I mean, there was different ways they could decide to go, but I figure here is a good like look at a mysterious kind of area. It's like burnt corpses in this circle. Now I was gonna make this like a trap room, but I think I was gonna more or less allude to one of the like better ranking. I want to say paladins. I call them Templars, but I just don't have a real like good word for them. But either way, it was one of them, and it was like, hey, you should probably find this person because they'll really help you out going through this crap. Because these are kind of the undead I was talking about. They're pretty spooky, dude. Yeah, so then, you know, you had your little walkway, and then I'd be like, oh, there's survivors here in case your troops died. You know, because I wouldn't expect a solo player to really go through all this by themselves. Like, they would need help. And I figured it's fun to kind of have some sort of help with it. And so, yeah, just big battle map. And then I introduced these. So I mentioned these guys a while back in the campaign for Life and Death. It was the second campaign. So that soldier place that where one of those abyss portals were, these ones were here. Because that means that these cultists are in tandem with the abyss, and also these undead are too. And so I had it where this is the occult leader, I think, and then he'd have some occultists. I think there was like a boulder thing I was gonna do Indiana Jones style down this pathway. I don't know. It's gonna be kind of funny. Yeah, and then these are ghouls. They kind of just double claw attack. But yeah, that was kind of one of the battle maps. And then I think there was another one after that. I don't really need to show. It was just a giant ice lake. You popped out in the center of it, and yeah, you ended up fighting your way up the lake, and one of the cliff faces you go up, and then there's a stone structure. Uh, there's somebody in a cage, I believe. I don't know who it was. Who'd it be? Oh, okay. So I think this is an undead, but their recollection of unservitude for whatever higher power does work here and controls the undead, he does not fit the bill. And so he has past recollections of what the life used to be like here in this land, and it was not a frozen, desolate wasteland, um, which kind of puts two and two together. Like, oh shit, so frozen waste of that one that we first went through didn't used to be that, because that land was that kingdom, and something happened with here that made that into the frozen waste, just like this one was. And so I think at some purpose, like, they would unlock it, figure it out, find that this was sort of an abyss portal that those soldier dudes came out of, mindless soldier guys. And then another little cave thing would be where you kill the cultist leader. It would have been like a boulder rolling kind of Indiana Jones thing, I think. Kind of funny. But, I don't know. I think I had something here for a character. No, it's a revenant. Ooh, you'd had a 500 fucking revenant. Yuck. I didn't figure anything else out aside from killing the cultist just to get like satisfaction. It was just a different alternative that I think a player could go down, because on their travel back, I was gonna have all this stuff happen simultaneously. So it was either go far as Prince and fuck find the doors. Otherwise, there's like you don't go with the ranger party scouting, and you decide to stay with the king. So then they find the cultist. You join the general knight guy. Go fucking cut the head off this snake, and then he comes back. It's like, whoa, yeah, hell yeah, we're doing good. And then suddenly, yeah, they get ambushed, surrounded, and it's sort of like a death of him. I mean, I'm not sure if the player would be able to escape it or not, but yeah, it would have been the story of him dying, and yeah, you find out that it's the prince. Like, I don't know, in some way or fashion, it was the prince's responsibility. Like, he killed him. Like, the prince just, I don't know, in this area, in this place, it just made him go stir crazy, and he just lost his mind, and then he just, I don't know, gained some power of some sort, unleashed this like undead massacre thing of these frozen undead. Uh, yeah, just like killing, like, because I'm sure that that dude was like a mentor to him at some point, and then he would kill more people on the list, like his crew, the player, obviously, and then his father, and then what have you not. So yeah, so that was one option. There was another one. So you go Dwarf Mine, I already described that. The Yeti Cave, which was that. And then there was the Iron Mine, which I think I had a Silver Dragonborn in this area. Uh, yeah, so there's this iron iron mine, which had a lot of riches in it because the silver dragon or the silver dragonborn held the treasures that there used to be a silver dragon that lived up in these mountains, but I think ended up becoming that cold frost dragon. I don't think that I thought of that, but I mean, and now I think that that would be a cool storytelling. Um, but they still held on to those treasures, and the problem was is they just losing ground. I think over time. I mean, they had a very complex cave network system going on in this thing. They'd have their parties going out to rummage whatever food they could in this deathland. Um, Otherwise, I think they might have figured out a minor greenhouse effect with some, I don't know, some food maybe. Because I know there's stuff that does grow in the cold that you can like consume and eat and live. So this is way too much to show. This is a giant cave network. So it would happen to be these undead would be burrowing their way through and manage to like dig holes into their system. So their main entrance area that they had very well protected, and the reason how they survived so long. But now it's like that have burrowed their way through and kind of pincered through those defenses. They were kind of like struggling from like block to block of their civilization in this giant cave network. And I mean, you would see barricaded places and dead dragonborn, and then just skeletal bodies just laying about. And um, I mean, you'd find some ragtag survivors maybe just nestled up in a like really well fortified area. They were very badly beaten up. Um, I don't think there's a leader alive here. I think they're all dead. Did any of them even live? No, the chieftain was alive. Holy shit. I think that was it. I think I don't know, I think that was just how I rolled. Oh, I guess some dwarfs found their way there. I think I made it to where the dwarfs crashed. They all got separated. Um, I guess spooked in a way by something. I don't really know what, but they just kind of ping ponged around. So they're just like you'd find dwarf corpses just in various places as you travel through this land. Some would be kind of comedic, how he'd die, or you know, guy fucking fell through the ice. I don't know. Um, in any case, the only thing that I see in this cave that had any like story narrative, which would be, I think this Colonel. Put Colonel on here. Now, where the fuck is this character sheet? Because this was a dude frozen in time. Like the Silver Dragon specifically did that for this guy. Because whatever civilization did live up here, this would be the only living relevant thing to have come out of it. Like a time capsule, I guess. Dude's got a freaking mithril greatsword. Jesus. What level is he? 15? Holy fuck. I think he was a, like, Paragon Knight. God damn. This guy's crazy. Holy shit. Mithril plate. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So, yeah, that kind of character which would have helped me kind of figure out what happened. Um, just so it's like when another campaign does happen out in like the frozen lands, I kind of got like maybe I could figure out maybe how could we restore this, because it seems like a lot of my world is kind of in disarray and kind of destroyed. It's like, how do we restore these things to like bring back peace? It just seems that kind of way, and so I find it interesting to like kind of put this character in there to be like, hey, this is kind of what it was before, and um, how I lost everything. I mean, that's a very strong character to be helping you. I didn't know what I was going to do with him. I just know he was frozen. You had to figure a way to unfreeze him. I mean, the Silver Dragonborn would have a mage. Like, sage, or... What do you call him? Shaman? Oracle? Whatever. Their spiritual counselor. Yeah, so... It would have been an interesting spin. I don't think I really had any idea of what the civilization was before all this happened. I think they built a wall, but that only lasted so long because the abyss creatures showed up, and there was another one that I made. It's called the Burrower. That's what got them into the fucking wall. Like, it was a very, very big wall. But, yeah, that burrow got them in there. That's how they all died. And then their valley, and then the refugees fled on to boats, or they jumped in the water. Like, I think it was kind of that scene, like in Game of Thrones at Hardhome, where it's just, fuck it, I'm gonna jump in this frozen lake. I'd rather freeze to death than be brutally killed by this crazy shit. Yeah, and that's kind of how that they ended. I don't think I elaborated really how or what anything did happen, in a sense. I think this might have been the early concept of my main Lich Lord guy. Like, I'm talking the dude who kind of controls a massive amount of undead. Like the original. I think that might have been the pre-game for it. And that's what this entire thing was about, I think. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it. So, okay, outside that cave, that was kind of just like a sidestep sort of, hey, a little bit of unlocked lore. But it wasn't really the main narrative, because I believe that there was another option. There was a behemoth cave. That thing is deadly as hell. Yeah, which would have been that top of the line cleric going out. You see, there was the spire, which was the cultist, and that's what the king wanted so badly to end and get their head, which I think in significance it was kind of a like blue horn human skull or something. Blue horns that were like stuck in a human skull. That was kind of his mask. And yeah, so the chief cleric or whatever would venture out. I think that they had a motive for their own interests, because I think earlier edition of cleric, I think, is not the same as what came after, because I think that you were more in tune, unlike how it was all locked out in the later half. So I think that they're more in tune with how, like, the evils of, like, where it is, like, the big evil would be. And they figured the cultists were piddly. Like, it was nothing. It's just like, oh, it's little follower bastards. Who cares? Like, the real threat which this one saw, took the heavy hitters of undead striking with them. I mean, this enraged the king because he never left the camp. No, he kind of just stayed there. Um, but yeah, so the chief cleric would go out and they would strike into old villages and stuff. They would crash through it like it was nothing. I mean, dude, you'd be hitting some like, God, what tier level freaking undead do I have in this? All right, here we go. So we got the frigid undead, ghouls, banshees. They're nothing. Skeletal dwarves, wraiths. They just delete them all. Yeah, so plucking through that first town, they go through a second one. Yeah, and then I think the way that I think I had this one, because pretty much everything was gonna die here. Would have ended at this. I want to say it was a keep that overshadowed this town. I mean, obviously everything's sort of dilapidated and dead, but the keep sort of held a stature of like living in, sort of. I mean, some of the walls were sort of busted, but the thing structurally looked sound. And so I believe the thing was that the party would split here, I think. Being that I think that. So I mentioned earlier that there were. What did I say they were called? Templar? I don't have a better name for them. But they wanted to clear this keep out and take camp there. But the head cleric said, no, we need to press on. And so I think they butted heads and there was strife between them because I think there was some magical like discombobulation happening with people, like their mind and their like morale and stuff. As why I had the coin flip thing. So it kind of turned strife between these characters. And so they left to do their own devices because they thought they were like top shit. The arrogance, I guess, and overconfidence. And so, God, I think I should follow the head cleric first and then go to those Templar later. So the head cleric would go with their crew of other zealous clerics, minus the like fighting capabilities, like hand-to-hand combat that those Templars kind of had. But these clerics would, I mean, they'd still mop the floor with all these undead. And then they would end up at this, like, I don't really know what it entailed, but the early concept I have of it is like the old Chinese, like, craziness that, like, you had drowned people in the water upside down, and they would just be hanging there, kind of rotting away. And that was sort of the entrance into this place. Like, you'd have to swim in. It was like a, what do you call them? Hot spring? Yeah, this like palace or some sort. I mean, I don't know what the description of the palace was going to look like per se, but I just knew that the entrance of it would have had that, because there was no other entrance aside from going in the water and then finding that, and then I'm not sure what entailed after that, but I know that the head cleric would have come face to face with the purest of evil that incarnated from that abyss thing, the hierarchy of the abyss, whatever is, like head honcho creation or whatever the fuck it is. I don't know, but I just knew that this was a soul creation purposefully to just end life, like the purest and darkest and like horrible shit. Um, that this they come face to face against, and people lost their fucking minds, like killed themselves in front of this dude, like they lost their shit. Um, and then I believe that there would be like a little mock battle, but it would prove fruitless, as like the dude, the Necro Lord, I want to say, just easily like fucking just kills them all. They'll die, and obviously become a part of his undead menagerie, which I think in turn kind of creates the Death Knights from that point, from those clerics. I believe so, because they need to have a magical property for me to, or in order to make Death Knights that have the magical properties. Paladins, clerics, and then, so yeah, back to the Templar side of things. I believe that I had I think that it was going to be vampires. I think that's what I threw at in that town before. Okay. So the clerics and them fought vampires there. They were spawns. But then, yeah, that's why they got split. It's like, no, there's more. There's a bigger evil out there. Vampires are fucking reclusive. They only care about their property, and it's like their life. They don't serve nobody except themselves because they're greedy. That's what the fight was going to be about. And so the Templars said, no, they're evil. They gotta die. So, they go off. They go up there. I mean, this vampire was going to be kind of suavish and kind of a comedic sort of dude, but just like a good host, I want to say. Because he's been living years and years just bored out of his mind, but now he's got like some playthings to show up. Sort of test the like mental capability of these guys, or this troop, and I want to say gets them split up, because this keep is this vampire's designed it in a way to kind of do that. So it kind of becomes a house of horrors in a way. There's like a hall of reflection, and then there's like a hall of sin and whatever have you, just to like fuck with people. Just everything that you can think of in D&D that affects psychic in a way that this vampire sort of had, because he was like a mage, I believe, at one point, and kind of an illusionist, but it sort of turned into more of like a power graspy kind of illusionist. So he's cocky and assured of his like work and craft. He does cause a few of them to break, and then in turn ends up getting them to believe that there's somebody within, like it was gonna be an Among Us kind of situation, and yeah, so he was gonna make them lead to believe that they killed him, but they still had to deal with the fact that there was somebody among themselves that were like not one of them. And so they would end up, going through that. And I don't know if they would all die in a sense, but I just knew that kind of shit was going to happen, and he was just going to watch it all unfold and just laugh about it. But he does uncover a lot of stuff that different land. It's like, oh, he can get off this rock. Fuck this place. It's just nothing, no fun for him. Dude, vampires, they want to get out of their boredom, because they just fucking sit there all day just stirring a wine glass, looking at a fire. It's like, fuck this, dude. I want to go do something. So he wants to get off this rock. And so doing so in that, watching that all unfold. Now, I'm not sure if he fully capably, like, like controls them, like mind control, maybe. I'm not sure, but I just know that he leaves there. Templars either die or live. I wasn't sure. They either go with him or they are there, possibly die or just live in this land. I think I was gonna leave that up to like a what if situation. Like, fuck, I don't know what to say. It's a goddamn, what's the word? Up to your imagination. There we go. Yeah, so he would end up back at the mainland, and he'd just fuck about somewhere in a later. I think I brought him into later. I think I would have him in other campaigns, but no one ever found him or interacted with him. It was unfortunate, but I thought it was a fun character that I sort of built. Yeah, so that was the option of a player to go there and do that, and then the Templars going to split off from them. I mean, I would have probably wouldn't care if the player went with the Templars or not. Maybe, whatever. I guess it was all choices in a sense. And then, yeah. So I believe that was kind of all the things that sort of pinpointed. The player would have definitely ended up dying going with the cleric. The player was probably going to die going to the spire at the end of that. It was iffy with the keep. What was the other one? The silver dragonborn. I think they would have lived. I think that was a for sure live. I mean, if they got to that point, because then they would have told them that there's a way out to come back to the ship, and then they would have left to come back, figure out the prince's grand betrayal, and he's like, I don't know where the fuck he got this power. He got corrupted at some point. I mean, it seems like that's happening with everybody. And so the prince would lure out the king, cut him off with undead that were kind of buried underneath, and then kill his dad in a dramatic fashion, and set out to go kill the rest of his crew. And they all flee. What little did remain of whatever you picked up between the dwarves, if you got the dragonborn, or what have you. I didn't know how far to go with the campaign. I just figured it was just choices to either go this way, or this way. So replayability, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you could do it all at once. But then it's like, dude, there's definite deaths. Like, you went the cleric the whole time, dude, you're dead. Like, it's over. So, yeah, I'll tell more of what the campaign was gonna go down, because never visit it ever again. So, yeah, they chartered back onto the ship. They flee in terror. They go back home. I mean, they have no head of the occult leader. They come back with just a story. Like, they don't even know if they killed the occult, because that guy never made it back. Unless the player did come back, but I wanted to say no, just as the grand scheme of things without a player. So they leave. Whether or not that vampire's on board, I didn't know. He might have been. I think that would have been funny if he did somehow sneak his way on. Because I think a majority of the religious portion of them were dead, aside from, I think, the one that was in the prince's group. But I don't think they were really high enough level or keen to see that. I don't know, you'd have to see illusion. You'd need a mage. Because I think only paladins and stuff see, like, I don't know how the fuck that works. Alignments, maybe? How do paladins work? Well, either way, it's a cleric, so they don't have that divine sense. Oh, either way, there were no paladins on board. It was just whether that cleric had something or not. Yeah, so they get back to town. Very grim news. Uh, I forgot to mention earlier, but I didn't really put that in at the point. But somebody did have to take over in absence of the king leaving, which was his brother. Um, and the king's wife and some other uh, younger kids he had, and then his brother having some kids too, and his wife. They lived in the capital, learned of the news from the group. Um, Knew that there was that's gonna come down on them. So, which it did. Like everyone thought the fear was gonna happen, and it did. But the political atmosphere of it all, everyone's moving so slow. Nobody gets alerted. Nothing happens. All of a sudden, the shit shows up on the shore, fucking just killing village after village, and just like nobody's aware of what's happening. All of a sudden, this shit just comes up and just mutilates and just destroys, just resurrects their friends, and it's like you're fighting somebody you used to know, and it's like so heartbreaking. And yeah, no one's got the moral to just do it in a sense, so it just ends up where the kingdom just starts collapsing in on itself. uh the brother of the king just decides to have everyone flee, but he'll stay back just to keep, because they know the prince is kind of in the forefront, so it'll kind of get them distracted enough so they can get away while he's out on the wall, sort of antagonizing him. Um, yeah, capital falls. Um, which, yeah, so the group of the prince's regiment, I guess, leaves with that family. They go west, which would essentially be Crystalla, that kingdom. I didn't really have anything set up for what it was before all the shit broke apart. I just knew that they fled west to the kingdom over there to take cover and sort of tell them what's happening and to amass a force great enough to go and deal with that. Which, luckily for them, the only way that was gonna happen and how they were able to like get the time needed enough to figure out what to do and have enough power to go strike back out at them was because of a particular, like, I think it was called Rathelm, I want to say. I think I called it the Rathelm people or whatever. And they're like specific guard that worked there because they were specific knights. And they kept that undead advance like pretty well. I mean, they held out for quite some time, and it was pretty much due. I think this was like the first like badass woman character I think I had in there. Like, I'm not saying like fighting capabilities. I'm just saying like leadership wise, because I don't think I had one yet. Like, there'd be some slinging some spells off and stuff. They had like a moment of like, oh, cool, but they weren't really like cool. Because I mean, I've had some male characters that were pretty damn epic, heroic in a way. Like, I mean, old man kind of did his thing. I think there was also a paladin in that first campaign too. That was pretty damn good. And then let's see here. There was that mage in the campaign that happened after the first one. That was pretty damn good at bailing them out of some of their conflicts. And then, yeah, there were a few of them in that Lights Hope one too. It's just I don't think I had a woman character that was like quite as cool as this one. because I mean she inspired the troops. I think I wrote a speech somewhere. I don't think I have it. Maybe I like blended it in with another campaign. But I either way, it was sort of like one of those last stand like Helm's Deep kind of thing. But in the sense where there was a better speech to kind of like rile the troops up to kind of go on for one last like yeet raw as the undead came like crashing through their gates. Um, I mean they'd all die and get resurrected, and yeah. So the massed amount of army that did show up, uh, their clever ruse was to put the group out in the forefront to lure the prince out. And then their armies would battle out as they battled the prince. So they were getting cut down pretty badly, but they just needed enough time to set up, I believe, a ritualistic like binding or something, because they couldn't exactly kill him, because I think there was something in scheme of like, I don't know how, but he was kind of unkillable. I mean, he could die, right? You could kill him, but it's just what it took to do that. They didn't have the power to. Like your AC is too high. It's like you can't. You don't. You'd have to roll a natural 20 basically to hit the dude, or like, you gotta fucking do something with a certain spell to undo some shit that this dude has a buff in, kind of stuff. And so like they bind and like seal him in a prison of sorts. It's a magical prison, and this happened. I'm not sure where I had it set up, but there was some place in specific that they had, and he was entrapped into this binding circle, which it was quite a large radius or ring. It killed all the people who were casting it, but he was trapped. And I think that I wanted to have that be maybe that relic that way when I first talked about this D&D campaign, that was gonna float the narrative of how all this shit started. Because then, I mean, I already knew sort of something that was in that, what is it, an old ruins? It was an old, like, kind of religious center to sort of, like, keep this thing away from the world so nobody, shut it down, keep it buried, kind of thing. And I think it just eventually fell because of the power that emanated from it, which caused people to kill each other. Like suspicious minds, and that's ended up what happening. Which, I mean, now that I think about it, that would have been a better solid object for him to be bound into. And then that would have circled back to that whole shit. Holy fuck. You see, I'm still working the process of the gears, dude. That's actually pretty fucking cool. I mean, if I would elaborate a little more on my original story concept. But I've already got that written down. I don't need to post that up online. Because this is a lot of stuff to write down. I really don't. I just want to have it in video format. And I just look through it and it's just like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I remember. Bing, ping, 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 pong. Ay. So, Prince gets what he wants. He kills everybody he knew. Aside from, I guess he didn't get to kill his aunt-in-law, his cousins, or his siblings. Yeah, and I don't really know what happens to them after that. Because that would have been um this takes place before the world gets split apart, torn asunder. Things go to hell. And so I don't know what happens to that lineage at all. Which, I mean, I'm still have a vague concept or notion of how this all plays out, where the big cataclysm basically happens. But I don't have anything solid. Yeah. Just want to double check some things. No, I believe that's it. So, yeah, thank you all again. Uh, I'll see y'all in the next one.